Hello and welcome to the Midwest Motoring Podcast, sponsored by Hagerty. My name is Matt Pesaconis. I am your host, and I am joined this week for part 2 of our discussion with Jeremy Clark. He is an avid motor enthusiast. He has a ton of great cars, including a Ptsd awareness-wrapped G35 that we'll talk about a little bit later in the podcast. But this is, again, part 2 with Jeremy Clark as we talk about kind of some of his experiences and what he is doing to bring motorsports to those potentially suffering with some serious PTSD. Now, back to our interview with Jeremy Clark. So, I mean, you've been working with you've been working with Save a Warrior Project. What's going on with them right now?
All right, Save a Warrior, just a quick backstory. When I was at probably my lowest point, which is in 2015, I was really struggling. There was suicidal thoughts again. There was non-traditional actions on that thoughts, like, for instance, heavy speeding or, racing, illegal street racing, stupid stuff that I did because I was trying to supplement that, some of that rush of war.
Right.
What ended up happening was I got to the point where my wife says, hey, either A, you do this or we're done. We're a family, everything. And what she ended up kind of pushing me towards, was either A, I go to a PTSD in-center where I would go residential.
Mm-hmm.
That's what she was hoping for. But someone in my own PTSD group went through the Save a Warrior program, and they were talking about it on a Saturday. And it kind of piqued my interest, and I was like, nah. But then they said it was only 5 days. I'm like, well, that's better than 2 weeks, or whatever the VA wants me to do.
Right.
So I brought it up at one time in therapy, and what ended up happening was the decision was made that I was going to Save a Warrior. So I called them up. Once you do your application, someone calls you, and they kind of process things with you to make sure you are in a place to be a candidate for Save a Warrior.
Okay.
Because the thing is if you're not ready, you're not in the position to be, to heal,
right,
or accept it, I guess at that point, you're not going to do well in there whatsoever.
Okay.
So they have to make sure you're ready.
Right.
And I was at that point because I've been in therapy for 10 years and going to counseling, and nothing was working. Medicine,
right.
Well, I needed to find something else, or my whole life was going to change. So I ended up going through the program, and the program, there's a lot of things that happen in there that I would not want to share just because the experiencing of it.
Yeah.
So it would ruin kind of the experience if I shared with it. But the end result is with Save a Warrior, they take you through this program, and they expose you to, like, for instance, childhood trauma or the root of your PTSD, where it came from. And they talk about how, like, for instance, your military or your first responders experiences created that moral injury as an adult, and those two together combine, and they call complex PTSD.
Okay.
That concept between the two is what puts you in this place today.
Okay.
And you've created all these, what we call rackets, these ways to manage your life through that. And Save a Warrior kind of breaks down those rackets and exposes you through education, through shared experiences with other veterans and first responders. And basically by processing it, accepting your trauma and letting it go, combine that with your education and ongoing education afterwards, because they give you a reading list to continue your education with.
Yeah.
The best part of it, in my opinion, they create a community. The cohort that I went through, 058 is what number I was.
Okay.
10 veterans. We talk still to this day, 2.5 years later, on a daily basis.
That's awesome.
And we support each other. We are there for each other. When one of us is struggling, we all throw in. We all drop everything.
That has to be extremely helpful.
It is. That, I think, is what has maintained me over the 2 years and 2.5 years since then. And then they also teach you new practices such as meditation. Meditation was something I never would have done on my own because it wasn't manly or something like that.
Right.
So
if you want to share, like you shared that it was warrior meditation is kind of what you're coining the phrase as. I don't know if they teach you it as warrior meditation, but like, what is meditation to you can be so different than meditation to somebody else. Some people are lighting incense, or some people are just centering their mind, and some people it's just thinking about the day ahead and prioritizing. So what is that to you?
Well, the more warrior meditation actually is a patent style of meditation. They had these gurus take all the best stuff and design it for veterans and first responders.
Right.
And that, one of the things that I dealt with, and a lot of other ones deal with, is intrusive thoughts that come in and you can't get rid of them.
Okay.
Like for images of September 5th for me with my buddy Corey.
Right.
Those would come in and it would take me for hours to get them out of my head. I might see a traumatic event video online and it just rotates in my mind nonstop.
Right.
And I can't. What that does, it also piles into anxiety, thinking about the future, living in the past. And what happens is you are robbed of your presence. I found sitting in, like, for instance, one of my daughter's band performances, I wasn't paying attention to her performance. I'm sitting there looking around where the best sniper position would be. I'm trying to figure out, okay, if we were in a scenario, how would I get my kids and my wife out of this situation?
Right.
That's the life I was living in my brain. No one else would see it, but so I was never present is what it came down. The warrior meditation is really focusing on bringing and remapping your brain.
Okay.
Scientific proof back out there that says meditation can help retrain the brain to be present. And the process comes down to, it's a 20-minute session. It's broken into 6 minutes and 40 seconds. So it's 3 parts to it. The first part is really just trying to zero your brain out. It's trying to not think about anything. So they use this method where you're touching your fingers and you're saying words that don't mean anything. Va, and I'm repeating that. So I'm using my brain, speaking and touching. So this is where my focus is. So it's starting to keep me focused. And I'm doing that for 6 minutes and 40 seconds. Then I shift into breathing and saying va in my brain. I'm breathing in on letting out on va, breathing in. And so I'm focusing on just breathing at this point. So for another 6 minutes and 40 seconds. And then the last is where I kind of put everything together. And I'm really just trying to be present in this moment, feeling my body, feeling the breath coming in and out. And what happens is during this whole process, anytime a thought comes into my head, I acknowledge it, okay? Because you're allowed to have thoughts.
Right.
The coined phrase is, I heard this once from a guy in the group and I'll never forget it. He says, we're spiritual beings having a human experience. And I love that phrase. And so when this thought comes into my brain, I acknowledge it because my brain is a brain. And what I do is, though, I imagine I take that thought, I put it on a leaf, drop it in the water, let it float away, and go back to thinking. And if I can't focus, I would just have to return back to my process again, go back to ava, touch my fingers, and then breathing, and recycle that. And I can tell you, the first year, it started out rough. I don't think I made it through a full 20 minutes without thinking about other stuff.
Right.
But as time went on, and that, sometimes 2 a day, sessions, I eventually got to the point where I was sitting in peace. I was comfortable in my thoughts. I was learning that, hey, I can process this stuff. And when my intrusive thoughts come in during the daytime, okay, there it is. I see it. Okay, put it in the leaf, walk, let it go away. And I was able to go. I wasn't dwelling on it or focused on it or obsessed with those thoughts at that point.
Okay.
So I started to change. And what ended up happening even more so, which was something they don't really talk about, but I found through the process of meditation, but also with my therapist, who's that Marine guy I told you about, he kept telling me, he goes, like when you get angry, when you get your emotions are out of check, you need to find that happy place.
Right.
And just focus on it for a few. I used to never be able to do that. But after the meditating, the first time he brought that up to me again, he goes, how are you managing your emotions? And I thought about it for a minute. I was like, you know what? Last time I got angry, I just took a breath and waited a few seconds, and then I was able to process. So instead of using the survival part of my brain, I started using my cognitive part of my brain, and I was able to think clearer. And this whole process in 2 years, I believe, with Save a Warrior, their meditation, their exposure, all the stuff they did, I made more progress in 5 days as Save a Warrior than I did in 10 years of therapy.
Wow. That's huge.
And it is huge. If you look at right now, I believe there have been close to 1,400 veterans and first responders. I'm estimating the last time I saw the numbers. If you look at the numbers, remember I told you earlier, 20 to 22 veterans committing suicide per day. Unfortunately, I have heard, I believe 3 veterans, 3 out of 1,400 have chosen to end their life in that manner still. But if you look at the process and overall their numbers, they are leading the fight and the war against the suicide epidemic among first responders. They found something that is working, because I can't get numbers like that from anywhere else.
No.
It's just amazing.
It's very bad that they've lost some people, and that has to hurt those who are still going through that, but that also might help them change something to make sure that they're going to get to those people that maybe were struggling the most, right? I hate to trivialize anything, but it's a learning experience, and maybe they can take something from that and make something better, right? Always trying to find that silver lining on that stuff, because that's never easy.
That is true. Even when I went through it, Save a Warrior has evolved multiple times since then. They are constantly evolving their education. They are not just stagnant and say, we found a process that works. They are constantly evolving their process, but using staying true to the roots of what they found, their secret sauce, as I call it. They use this knowledge, and they are constantly evolving, educating. Jake Clark, who is the founding and the big man of Save a Warrior, I believe he finished his master's at Pepperdine.
Okay.
In this whole thing, and he used this as his thesis stuff. He's a brilliant man, and the stuff that he says out, you can see him on YouTube if you just YouTube Save a Warrior, Jake Clark. He's got videos out there, and when you listen to him speak, he's a guy that can command your attention.
Wow.
But he just, when you're in the container, as we call it, when you're in Save a Warrior, when he speaks, it changes things, because you're listening to this guy and you're like, this guy, number one, I'm nothing, that's the thing. I felt, I was unique and different, but when I found guys that had more experience in the combat or different kind of fields, and they are going through this and they're expressing emotions, which I never have. And I'm like, there's something going on here.
Right.
And I saw this between him and Adam Carr. And these two guys showed me that you can still be a man and show emotions.
Right.
You could be a man and be open to share emotions with another man. You can be a man and cry with another man,
right,
and still be a man, because there's anyone that would call Adam Carr or Jake Clark less of a man, there's no way they can compare themselves to them, in my opinion, as far as their experience and life experiences,
right,
as far as what they've done for this world too. But for them to do that, and me to see them, that they are a man and they have grown out of that man child who like a lot of us are.
Right.
That's kind of the whole process of what it is. It's initiating our children into men.
Okay.
Because, think about this. Your son right now is kind of young. But do you have an older kid at all? I'm sorry, I didn't ask. Do you have an older kid?
Oh, no, just Owen right now. He'll be the oldest. We're expecting another one, but he's the oldest.
All right, so there's a difference between a man and a child. A man will do something even if he hates it, because it's the right thing to do. A child will avoid the same situation just because that's what they do. And kind of how I was living. I was living as a man child, an adult man child, and avoiding doing the things that I wanted to do because I didn't want to do it. I didn't want to feel it. I didn't want to go through it. And when I finally learned that, hey, these guys are doing what I should be doing, it was a great role model and a path to growing into this new person who I became. And there was just so much experience gained from it. So Save a Warrior from there, moving forward with that, they had a place where they were, it used to be the old Longaberger Basket people. It was the summer home. That's where the village was, the Warrior Village. Okay. But through a huge donation, they ended up purchasing a new place down in Wilmington.
Oh,
and the Wilmington facilities is going to be hosting not only the Save a Warriors, but I believe they're going to be adding in, because part of the therapy also is equine therapy, working with horses. And there's a rope therapy where you're building team building, and you're building that bond with that shared experience with your cohort members.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So they're going to be adding that to their new facility in Wilmington, where they couldn't do it at the other place.
That's cute. That's awesome. So they're finding other avenues as well. So it's not just the camaraderie. It's not just the shared experiences. It's not just the teachings. It's also trying to teach them new skills, trying to give them therapy, like you said, through equestrian therapy. It sounds like they really have a huge gambit that these individuals will go through to try to help them, which is huge. That's what I think a lot of these guys and gals need.
Have you ever been around horses at all?
Yeah, yeah. In my childhood, a lot more than in my adulthood.
I've never been around them to the point I was with Save a Warrior, but one thing I never knew was that a horse lives in the moment right now. They don't care about anything else but at this moment. And they are so in tune with their emotions that they're in tune with your emotions. So whatever you're feeling, they will feel and express. And at one of the sessions is when I saw my whole self. And there's a saying, when you turn around fast enough, you see yourself for the first time, it's going to scare the hell out of you. Right, who you are, who you became. And the person I saw who I was for the very first time, sitting in that ring with a 1,400-pound horse. And what happened was, I'm standing in the ring, the therapist, he's outside talking and processing with me, and I'm in the ring with the horse. I just got done watching my friends go through there, and the horse is like hugging on them, crying with them. These guys are crying. I'm like, that's pretty cool. I want to experience that. I get in the ring. The horse stays on the other side of the ring from me. Doesn't even want to get near me. And when we started processing, I started becoming real, talking, becoming the real me, being in the moment, talking. And that horse came over to me, which was, I was like, oh, cool, the horse is here.
Right.
But my rackets, as I told you earlier, started presenting themselves, and I started playing the game again. And I've always been known to be a real angry person. And that horse got angry really quick at me. And what the horse did, it turned and tried to buck me with its hind legs. But I was aware enough to where I pushed off its hips and got out of its back end. And the guy goes, I've never seen a horse do that to one of our guys here. And I'm like, well, I understand it. And the horse repeated that process with me 3 times, where it would come up to me while I was talking, but then it would sense, I guess, who I was.
Right.
And this anger. And what I ended up processing was, my wife, she's 5 foot tall. She's real petite. And as she used to say, that I scared her sometimes, and the way that I was presenting myself, the way my demeanor, my vocalization of my words, whatever it was. And when I was standing in that ring, it was the first time I saw who I was.
Right.
Because I can imagine I'm 5'10", 200 pounds, standing over a 5 foot tall, 100-pound person. I imagine it could be scary.
Right.
When I'm standing there in the ring with this horse that I have no control over.
Right. And it's 1,400 pounds, 6 foot tall.
All of a sudden, I realized this must be how she feels, and how ugly and terrifying that must be. And I'm like, I can't believe I acted that way.
Right.
It was just a whole enlightening experience to try and focus on being present, being in the moment. But it also, at the same time, for me, in my case, it opened up my eyes to this whole side of me, which I never really paid attention to.
It's so interesting that the way the horse acted was basically like a mirror to your basically your outward projection of yourself.
Correct. That's exactly a better way to put it.
That's crazy.
Because that's what the guys say. The horse will mirror, since you use that word, will mirror your emotional state. If you're present, it'll be there. If you're not present with the horse isn't going to care what you want to do.
Right. It's going to be on the other end of the ring.
Right, exactly it. So between the therapies there, the horse therapy, and then the ropes course, hanging up 50 feet in the air with another brother, and you're relying on him not to fall.
Right.
Between the two of you. Yeah, you build some crazy bonds, and everything that's gained through it is just life-changing. And so, like I said, that put me on the path to become the best version of me who I am today.
Wow. So, I mean, you would highly recommend anyone who is going through those situations go seek out Save a Warrior.
If you are struggling with suicide thoughts, if you are struggling with post-traumatic stress or anything related to it, anxiety, or, heavy emotional states derived from negative emotional experiences in the military, even sexual trauma, anything that's trauma related, and you are a veteran or a first responder, especially our first responders, because their community right now, I don't believe they're getting the service that even the veterans are. The veterans are getting it because it's been promoted for several years. But
right.
The numbers of suicide among first responders is rapidly increasing as well.
Absolutely. I mean, the turnover rate on some of these guys just giving up on a career that they've been doing for so long, and these are good people, who are out here trying to help, save, and protect us, and then they go, you know what, F it, I'm done, right? I've had enough of this crazy life, and they've got bent up emotions about it, not just about current situations, but they obviously have had situations where they have seen things not just like soldiers. I can't really say just like, but they have experienced similar traumatic experiences that could cause them to need the help.
Right. Trauma is trauma. Regardless of where it originated, regardless of how it happened, trauma is trauma. Our body reacts the same to it. So
right.
try to tell people, don't diminish your trauma by saying my war trauma is better.
Right.
It's not.
It's different, but it's not. Right. Because, like, for me, like, I'm not a soldier, right? So if I experienced this trauma, it's going to impact my brain the way it does, right? Now, if I was trained as a soldier and I experienced the same trauma, it may be different, but a trauma as that person who's trained as a soldier may be twice as, like, it doesn't matter. But the way the individual experiences trauma is what you're saying is what's important, not the level of trauma.
Correct. While there could be factors with levels, but the whole idea is trauma is still trauma to the brain.
Right.
Our brain processes are very similar. What it likes to do is hide it, likes to squish it, likes to put it down below so we don't think about it.
Scar tissue.
In order to heal, we have to process it. We have to feel the emotions of it and work ourselves through it in order to move forward. So so if you're struggling with PTSD, you're struggling with depression, anxiety, suicidal thoughts, and you're a veteran or first responder, Save a Warrior is, my opinion, the key to your solutions, whatever you need. If it's if you are, like I said, if you know veterans that are struggling, or just talk to them and share with them, saveawarrior.org is their website. You can get and they have 2 facilities too. I didn't mention this earlier. Their one facility is in Wilmington. They also do a facility in California, in Malibu.
Oh, wow. Okay. If you're out in the West Coast, check that one out.
And the best thing about Save a Warrior, which I didn't mention earlier too, Save a Warrior, if you get yourself to the location, you drive yourself there, you fly yourself there, it is 100% free, the whole experience.
Oh, wow.
So there's no cost to, they give you lodging, they give you food, and they provide the experience. It's all free for the veteran.
Right.
So supported by donations at that point.
That's huge. Okay. So yeah, guys, and if you're not, and you want to donate, go seek them out and donate, because this is definitely a needed cause for our soldiers and for our first responders, for sure. Now, there's no real easy segue from talking about such an impactful subject as Save a Warrior, but I think the closest thing we can kind of talk about is VETMotorsports. What is VETMotorsports, and how did you get involved in it?
All right. So tying it back to the cars and everything there, since I've always done car stuff, one of the family support personnel that worked at the base, she pulled me aside one day and said, "Hey, Jeremy, there's this guy that introduced this thing called VETMotorsports. It's talking about veterans and motorsports. I think you'd be really interested in it." So I met the guy. I talked to him. We met at Cars and Coffee on in one of the winter months of Cars and Coffee.
Okay.
And we talked about what he was doing and stuff. And I told him, hey, this is what I want to do. I like this experience. I want to be involved in it. What VETMotorsports does, they take injured warfighters, so they focus on veterans only. They take injured warfighters and they place them into non-clinical outreaches. So this is not a clinical per se situation, but they put them in non-clinical outreaches based around motorsports, which was totally appealing to me.
Yep.
And the goal is they initially will get veterans behind the wheel at autocross events.
Okay.
And that's kind of like the segue to jump in. And what it does is they put the veterans there. They see how they respond to situations. If the veteran is in a good mental place or in a good situation where they can handle that, that could lead to other opportunities. So like often I will host or be a participant at autocross events all around Ohio.
Okay.
And witnessing and talking to veterans. And what Pete asked me to do is because Pete Klein, he's the CEO and the founder of the organization. He decided that, since he's a pure civilian who loves military members, he wanted to, he thought it would be good for me to be there to have that military contact on site, because there are military members that are on the board, but none that were out on the field. And I was like, dude, I would love to do that. I will be a part of that. And so just being a veteran among the other veterans allows them, as you talked about earlier, that commonality to start talking and finding more about them. And, I started to learn, okay, this guy right here will be really good for this next experience, Pete, where this guy over here, maybe another experience. We'll see how he's growing. He may not be ready for this next step. Right. And the next step often will be larger experiences, such as I've seen veterans placed on pit crews with Mazda race teams. They're the Mazda prototypes or the Miatas on the SVRA circuits or NASA or even in the big leagues, the real big ones. Veterans have been put into. I saw a veteran last year go work on a pit crew with the Baja 1000.
Oh, wow. Okay.
I had an opportunity, but at the last minute, my schedule changed and I wasn't able to do it due to some circumstances, but I had an opportunity to go to Pikes Peak, which was one of my dreams still to this day, to go to Pikes Peak. A lot of veterans have been put in with Yamaha race teams, Harley Davidson race teams, dirt tracks, straight road course motorcyclists. 1 year, I remember this one Marine veteran, he got actually, after the experience, Yamaha hired him on full time to work the pit crew, and that's what he did for the rest of the year. It was such an amazing experience for him. Trying to get into this whole spot, what that does, like I said, it opens up veterans to be put in this team-based environment, kind of how we were always based on teams in the military, but it puts it in a more positive light using the passions that we all have based around cars.
Okay.
So that's what VETMotorsports does.
So how did you get involved with it specifically? Like, did you go through the same process as everybody else did?
Absolutely. Yep. Because I think Pete and we hit it off really well. And like I said, we're friends. We talk regularly as well. But what I think when he first put me in those experiences, the first autocrosses and stuff, I think he maybe saw something in me and he said, okay, I'd really like you to continue doing this. And what ended up happening, I ended up in pit crews with the SVRA, the Vintage Race Series, and with a guy named Aaron Brown out of North Carolina.
Oh, yeah.
We ended up doing it was our team, which was pretty cool. He was the team owner and racer. He was a former NFL New York Jets player.
Okay.
Jody O'Donnell, I believe his name is.
Oh, okay.
We worked on his pit crew at Indy Brickyard 2 seasons. I did that, and then also I did it up at Road America, which was really cool. When I met Aaron Brown, he had a land speed truck, which we were running down at the Ohio Mile, and it was a street legal 39 Ford Rat Rod.
Okay.
All right. But get this. Aaron Brown used to work for DEI, the whole Dale Earnhardt industry and stuff. He was crew chief with them and such. So he's got a lot of connections. This 39 Ford Rat Rod, while it looked street legal on the outside, it was a modified cup frame underneath it, full-on Roush Yates motor underneath the hood, spinning 9,300 RPMs, NA. And the first year, he ran 197 miles an hour in a standing mile.
So basically, it's a air quotes street legal NASCAR is what it really is.
Exactly.
Man.
We did that. The second year, we broke. The goal was to break 200. He ended up breaking it. Year. And what he ended up doing was, after he realized he wasn't going to break our goal of 200, he started attacking all the records, and he was blowing through records from all these other classes. He took the fastest time in the forced induction class, even though he was NA. So, I mean, this truck was running hard.
Okay.
And, Aaron Brown also holds the record, I believe, for in the Vintage Cup class at the Spawnville Salt Flats at 243 miles an hour, if I remember right, in a stock production car.
Okay. Somebody on the internet will check us.
I'm sure they will. Yeah. So, but Aaron Brown, he's a fantastic guy. Great. He's a veteran himself, so he bought into Pete's program.
Yeah.
And that's kind of how we started doing that. Here's another one with Aaron Brown. He built his 72 FJ.
Okay.
Threw a Ford motor, Roush Yates motor in there too, V8. The first year, it was kind of a bet. He made a bet that he would build the FJ and drive it completely off-road from North Carolina to Vegas for SEMA, because he has something in SEMA every year.
Okay.
And people were like, nah. So he got all the sponsors together, his off-road guys and stuff. They built this thing. I was fortunate to be part of it. I helped build part of the rack system in there.
Okay.
My friend Eric with Pro Graphics of Columbus, he wrapped a Yeti cooler with this whole military theme to it, and he took that to SEMA with it as well. Aaron's a good guy. He ended up driving the Trans-American Trail from North Carolina, 3,800 miles, all the way out to
Dang.
over a month. The first year he did that. The second year he started, I believe, I didn't follow him this much here, but I know the second year he was trying to get veterans on the trail with him.
Okay.
And Ford, I believe, sponsored by throwing a Raptor his way, a four-door Raptor as a support vehicle where veterans could ride along, do the trail ride and stuff there with them as they're doing that. So
that's awesome.
Aaron's a great guy, loves veterans just as much as he is a veteran, but he was willing to open up his doors and his pit crew and everything to allow the veterans from VETMotorsports to come.
I'm sure that was also a big help to have those veterans along, because I tell you what, if you come across any situation you need assistance in a lickety split, it's good to have some veterans near you.
Right, and then not to mention work ethics. A lot of veterans have a different kind of work ethic and work creed when it comes to doing stuff. So.
Right, like you said, service before self. Right.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
So you got involved in the VETMotorsport. It's obviously opening up a lot of doors. So what are you doing here in the future? Like, what are your aspirations for 2021 and into the future? And what engagements are you going to be working with?
As far as what I like to do, my goal is to continue doing what I have been doing, which is to educate the public, whether through public or private discussions in regards to what PTSD is and its way to heal. Through this whole, like in the past, I've spoken with human resource retreats at different various places. I've spoken to a lot of clergy, both military and civilian, to help say, this is what veterans go through. This is my experiences. This is how I could have had help if someone was offering me help. Also with the veteran in the workplace, that was a big discussion too on how do we handle veterans that are dealing with this in the workplace. That's what the human resources were. Having luncheons with military leadership to say, hey, your veterans may be suffering and they're not telling you. You're seeing other actions, but that's hiding the truth.
Right. They're lashing out.
Correct. One of the biggest opportunities I had, I was offered twice at two different places. Ashland University and Cedarville University asked me to come in and speak at Cedarville to their college senior level nurses to talk to them about trauma and the veterans, because they were getting ready to go into the nursing field, the education you needed. With Ashland, I was brought back several times to come in and speak and talk about heavy trauma and the veteran. And it was all with the senior level course counselors. And their biggest thing was they wanted to know how to connect to the veteran, how to appeal to them, because like I told earlier, if you're the veteran, civilian doctor speaks so differently than a veteran.
That nomenclature, so different.
It's so the ability to connect. That's what I was trying and hopefully providing them education with, on how I was able to connect with this civilian doctor versus this civilian doctor, where I basically shunned them and quit going. So that's what the whole experience was about. And that's what I want to keep doing, is keep educating others in some way. And using my passions, such as with VETMotorsports at the racetrack, or volunteering and helping out with Save a Warrior, whatever I can. Such as what's the car show coming up in August that we just got?
That you put me on the spot and I don't know. It's the Back to the Blue Rumble, I think it is. I'll put it in our links, because it goes by one name for the business, and then it's completed. But I think it's Back to Blue Rumble, or Back to the Blue Rumble. It's a car show in Cincinnati that helps out with the tri-state area, Indiana, Kentucky, and Ohio, with fallen families of first responders and soldiers. So it's completely voluntary, charitable organization that 100% of the proceeds to that car show that we'll be participating with goes directly to these families to help support them due to losses. They also have helped support local organizations like local police departments when they needed new radio systems and they couldn't afford to buy them. So they helped out with that kind of stuff. So that one's going to be a big one too.
So my goal is to continue going to car shows, or continue going to these places where I know other veterans will be, and talking and being open and being able to share my story with them. Because what the end goal with everything is if I can just help one guy, one girl, or some veteran or first responder get the resources they need to change their life, whether, my conversation, I know I've had conversations with people and they didn't know I was considering suicide. But this next person might be coming to me. And if they are, I would hope that my story would give them enough courage to reach out for that help.
Right. Resonate with them.
Something. And if that happens, it makes everything worth it that I'm doing. Because I don't get paid for anything that I do. Every time I've ever spoke, every time I've done, it's all been volunteer. It's at my own time. I'm fortunate because I'm an educator. I have June, July, and August off, so I'm able to do this on a.
It's the driving season. You get the driving season off. You know, you were talking about how you wanted to maybe do something else a long time ago, but you found the way to keep the driving season off. That's why you really love teaching. That's what it is.
Right. Yeah, definitely. So I can go to the track more often is what it comes down to.
Well, you know, I don't blame you. I'm trying to get to the track more this year myself. But I think you hit on a couple of really big points. Is like you're trying to get out there. This is all pro bono. You're doing this because this is what your calling is, right? It's not because you're getting paid to do so, which is phenomenal, by the way. The other thing is like if you can help one person understand that they need to go try something different. You know, I'm not trying to trivialize it again, but like I tell a lot of people when they're like, especially around this time of the year, they're like, I want to read more books. It's like, okay, well, do yourself a favor. If you're reading a book and within the first 10 minutes, you don't love that book, it's not that you don't enjoy reading. It's you don't enjoy that book. Similarly, when it comes to getting help and going to therapy, it's like if you go to a therapist and it's not working, it's not that therapy doesn't work or like talking about your feelings doesn't work. It just might be that approach from that person is not helping. So go out and try to find the next thing to continue to, you know, go down that path of self-realization and self-improvement, because you never know what might happen, and you never know when it's just that one other page away that you're going to get hooked or you're going to get the help that you need.
Right. Because there's really only two real ways to transform yourself. There's the quantum moment where you have like this aha moment where everything just comes to realization, and it does provide relief, but it's usually only a temporary moment.
Right.
You know, it's not long lasting. And then you have a spiritual education through an educational variety. This is where you're really attacking the problem. Like, for instance, dealing with the emotions, experiencing the emotions, going through that trauma again to really process it. It's very painful. But it can lead to fear, and it's also, this is how you will continue to thrive afterwards, because you've actually dealt with the problem rather than just kind of mask it.
Right.
And that's kind of where Saul led me back to. Saul was actually combining both of those moments, which is an approach that I have not seen anywhere else. You have your aha moments. My aha moment was standing in the ring with the horse.
Right.
But dealing with the trauma, you know, talking about it and exposing myself to what I really should have felt years ago, and finding a cure, my own cure, not anybody else, what works for me, and then having that process to be set up for my recovery and you know, being able to learn to thrive through the community. That is what was completely different about Saul for me, and that's where my own healing came from. So you're right. So one therapist didn't work for me, you know, because they only maybe worked one way, or like just the quantum moments, where this other guy may have done just try to find, you know, let's just process the emotion.
Right.
But Warrior has a dramatic approach to it, completely combining the two, which I don't see other therapists doing.
Right. So try it. I mean, if you're struggling with any of this stuff and you're a veteran or first responder, go check out Save a Warrior Project. We'll put, like I said, all the links that we have from Jeremy into our Facebook group. We'll broadcast them out as many places as we can, because I think it's, as you put it, more and more veterans are getting help that they need, but it's not fast enough, and
Correct.
it needs to go. It needs to be a exponentially quicker procedure for these guys and gals to get the help that they need. So, I mean, Jeremy, is there any other place that we can follow your antics? Do you want to plug anything? Do you want to tell anybody what the next big thing for you is?
Well, let's go with next big thing. Next big thing, I really, you know, I'm all about peace, love, and happiness these days. So I just pretty much ride the wave and just try to find places where I can talk to people if they'll listen. So there's nothing real dramatic coming out there. With as far as communication, I do run an Instagram page where I try to post my experiences and use maybe, you know, some cool picture or some laughable picture or something, just to try to grab the attention, where I can say, hey, look, this is how my healing process went. And I share my stories through that on Instagram. DWP for PTSD is the Instagram, my handle there, I guess it would be. And on Facebook, it's Driven with Purpose for PTSD awareness. It's also, if you search it out too, Instagram will connect you there too.
Okay.
Or Driven with Purpose. drivenwithpurpose.org is the website I created, which takes you right to the Facebook page. And on the Facebook page, you know, that's where I promote stuff, where I will try to create events and say, hey, look, this is where I'm going. If you want to show up, great. If not, hey, you know, thanks for checking it out at least. So That's the kind of stuff.
I can't wait for 2021 to do more events, and we're definitely going to try to get you out to some of the track days and stuff, man. I think it would be a really good time. Plus, if there's anybody there that can help, it's great to connect people. So, Jeremy, again, guys, this has been Jeremy Clark. He's a fantastic human being. He's gone through a lot, but he also does a lot for other people. So I thought it was a fantastic story to share with you. Jeremy, thanks for being on the Midwest Motoring Podcast, this plucky little motoring podcast. I really appreciate it, man.
I appreciate it, man. Thank you for the opportunity to speak, and I thank you for the opportunity to allow me to share a little bit of my life with you guys.
It won't be the last. We'll definitely gonna have to have you back, especially if we go do some track days or something. Thank you to Jeremy Clark for joining us on the Midwest Motoring Podcast, guys. Thanks again for listening to this. If you know of anyone, friend, family, or whatever, who is struggling with PTSD, we're going to put all the links to these organizations, the Save a Warrior Foundation, as well as Vet Motorsports, on our Facebook group. That is Midwest Motoring Podcast. You can search it on your Facebook pages. And then, guys, again, thanks so much for listening. We can't wait to continue doing this kind of stuff. Until next time, thanks for joining us on the Midwest Motoring Podcast. See you later.